equation is y equals the square root of negative 3, which is also in vertex form. By looking at the equation, we can come to the conclusion that the negative 3 does not have to be carried to the other side because it is not under the square root. This also means that our y-intercept is going to be negative 3. We can then assume that there is an imaginary 0 in front of the negative 3, making it 0, negative 3. Since there is an imaginary 1 in front of the square root, we can also assume that the curved line will be positive. Another way of looking at this is that our negative 3 is our k, the second equation is y equals the square root of x minus 3, which is in vertex form. In order to solve for x, we must first get rid of 3. We do this by adding its additive inverse to the other side of the equal sign. So in this case, it would be 3. When graphing this equation, you have to imagine that y equals 0, which would make the solution 3, 0. Since there is an imaginary 1 in front of the square root, we can assume that this curved line will be positive. Another way of looking at this is if 3 acts as h because it's a square root function. After graphing both of the equations using a graphing calculator, I found that the graphs were not the same. This is because the square root sign is covering different numbers in the equation, which would greatly affect the graphing of the equation. Though both curved lines have the same direction, which is positive, the square root sign changes the graph, which will begin on the x or y axis. This is also, you can see it visually in the graphs because they both start on different axes of the graphs. After analyzing both of the equations and the graphs, I think it's safe to say that these graphs are indeed different. It is important to pick up on these patterns when comparing the equations because it can save us a lot of time on tests like the SAT or ACT or even our homework. Now, it's important to be able to catch on to different patterns or be able to differentiate between equations because especially on your finals or, like I said, your SAT testing, you have to be able to know the differences in order to get the question right. And just with practice, you'll be able to gain skills in this area